All right. Section 1-1, points, lines, and planes. We are going to go to an old school method of recording videos, and that's just recording my hand writing on paper and pencil, because we're going to be using our math tools. So for this video, you will need a pencil. You will need a compass for drawing circles. You will need some kind of straight edge, like a ruler. And then also I'm going to be using our geometry templates, which they just make the drawing of figures faster, a little more efficient and a little more accurate. But it's not necessary. You can do it without it. It's just a little extra tool to help things speed things along a little bit. Okay. So our objective is going to be to copy and add segments. So before we can dive into that, there's some vocabulary words that we need to discuss. So first are what we call our undefined terms. Most of the terms that we use daily or that we'll use in geometry can be defined, or they have an actual written definition. But there are some concepts that are so basic that it's impossible to write a definition, an actual formal definition, that does not actually refer to the term being defined, like a cow is a cow. You can't have the word in its definition. So these are what we call our undefined terms. In geometry, there are three undefined terms. There is a point, and we're kind of going to write it. This isn't really a definition, it's just a description. A point is a location in space. It just names a location in space. Okay, a location in space. So that is our point. It has no dimension, which means that we can't really measure it. It has no dimension. Okay, how we denote that or what that looks like is usually just a dot. Okay, there's a point, there's a point, there's a point. So those are all points. And we give them names. The name we give them is an uppercase letter. So I would call this, because without a name, if I said, hey, I want you to go ahead and put your pencil on that dot, on that point, well, which one? But if I give them names, if I call this one C, I call this one uppercase M, and call this one uppercase P, then if I said put your pencil on point M, well, we can do that. Okay. So ways to name a figure, we name them with just an uppercase letter, and we would call it point C, point M, etc. Dot dot dot. Okay. So we use an uppercase letter and like point C, point M, so forth and so on. Zoom in just a little bit. Okay, our next undefined term is a line. A line is just a straight path of points. Okay. It has no width or thickness, so it has no width. It goes forever in one dimension. Okay, so this is where our straight edge comes in handy. I'm sorry for all the auto zooms. It goes for forever. So this is where our straight edge is handy. Whenever you're drawing a line, you want to draw a ruler. So there is my line. And really what this line is there is a whole bunch of points infinitesimally close to each other all along this line. Okay, so it's just points all squished up all next to each other to make this line. It goes for forever in both directions. So whenever we draw a line, we want to put arrows in both directions, showing that it goes forever. And there are really two basic ways to name a figure. First of all, you can just name it with one single lowercase letter. And we put that lowercase letter near one of the arrows, is usually where it's at. So like A. So I would call this line lowercase a. If it's an uppercase letter, it's a point. So here, lowercase letter. So we either name it with one lowercase letter. So that's one way of naming it. Another way of naming it is 2 points on the line. So basically, we need to know the name of 2 points on the line. So let's say this point here is point W, and this point here is point X. Okay, there is an infinite number of points on this line. We only know the name of 2 of them right now. Okay, so I could call this line WX. Okay, and a shortcut way of writing that would be WX. Oops, sorry, pencil break. And then we draw this line symbol on top. Okay, with an arrow on both ends. That is line WX. But you only need to name it with 2 points on the line. This line, I could know the name of a whole bunch of points on this line. I know the name of 4 points on this line now. So I could also call this line WY, YX, ZY, XZ. Basically pick any 2 points that you know the name of on that line, list them, put the line symbol above it, and that names the line. So this could be line WX. This also could be line ZW with the line symbol above it. Any of those would work to name this line. So this line could have a bunch of different names, but it all denotes this same line here. Okay. A slightly harder concept is the plane because it's not just one-dimensional. One-dimensional stuff is the stuff that we can draw on a piece of paper. Okay, we get into 2-dimensional stuff, it's a lot harder to draw on a piece of paper. Okay, a plane is a flat surface. Oh, I already have the word plane there, sorry. Plane is a flat surface. It's a flat surface. It has no thickness, but it extends forever in 2 dimensions. So it goes forever in 2 dimensions. Okay, so instead of just going over left to right, it's going to go forever up out of the page, like up here out of the page. Okay, so if you can envision this piece of paper going for forever and forever in all directions, all flatness, that is a plane. A plane is a lot harder to visualize, and it's a lot harder to draw. Okay, the best way to draw it is I always like to use my template, and I use this parallelogram shape right there. There's also some smaller parallelogram shapes. There's this one over here, figure 31. That's a good parallelogram shape for my plane. So we go ahead and draw it like this, showing a flat surface that goes forever. Yes, I know, this flat surface has edges. That's just how we draw it and represent it on a piece of paper. A real plane has no edges. It doesn't ever end. It goes on and forever and forever. That's why it's an idea. No one can really make a plane, okay, that goes forever and forever in all directions. Okay, so we either name a plane using an uppercase letter that does not have a point. So I could call this plane R. So it would just be R with no uppercase, so I would call it plane R. There's no point there. Or I can name it with 3 points that are on the plane. So, and to be able to draw a point on the plane as opposed to off the plane. Here is point A, that's on the plane. If I was to put a point B down here, point B there is below the plane. So think of it like a piece of paper and we have a point down here. If I was to put a point D, that point is above the plane. Okay, so points here are either going to be on the plane, above the plane, or below the plane. You can't really be left of the plane because the plane goes forever to the left and the plane goes forever to the right. So if I want to name this, so I either name it with that uppercase letter with no point, or I name it with 3 points on the plane. So there's point A's on the plane. We also have a B and a D. I don't know, we'll put E, I. So I would call this plane A, E, I. And you'd have to write the word plane in front of it. We don't have a shortcut symbol for plane. Plane AEI. Those are 3 points on the plane. Or plane R. R is not a point. It's the name of the plane. Okay. So those are our undefined terms. We use these undefined terms to now define other terms. So now we're going to get into 3 new defined terms. So our first defined term is an endpoint. Sorry, the E, that should be an E. That's end point. Our endpoint is a point, obviously, at the end of a segment or array, which we're going to get to a segment or array here in a minute. Okay, so I'm not quite sure why the textbook defines endpoint first. Okay, first let's go ahead and let's define, we'll come back to endpoint here in a minute. Array. Array is a part of a line. So we're only talking about a part of the line that starts at a point and extends in one direction. In one direction. Okay, so how that is drawn, again, we use a ruler. In geometry, you're going to be using a lot of rulers. It would start, I would have an end point here. That's why we define it first. And then it extends forever in this direction. Okay. Very similar to a line, we name an array with 2 points. So I'm going to need 2 points. I'm going to need names for these 2 points. I don't know. Should we call this N and another point on here, Q? There's 2 points. We name it with 2 points. The end point is always first. So we would call this ray NQ, or we even have a shorthand. We would say NQ. And then your ray symbol always goes to the right, even if your ray doesn't go to the right. Rays don't always go to the right. Okay, so down here, I could have a ray that goes like this and goes up. Okay, we'll call this endpoint F, this point up here. And again, that point could be anywhere. Let's call that point G. We would call this ray FG. And again, we do it that way. The end point always comes first. We wouldn't call this ray GF because GF would go from here down this way. GF would go here to here. It's a completely different set of points. They overlap a little bit here in the middle, but it's a completely different set of points. So we have to be very careful on how we name an array. It always names the endpoint first. Okay. A line segment is also part of a line. It's part of a line with 2 endpoints. Unlike our line, which goes forever in one dimension, an endpoint does not. And a line segment does not. Sorry, wrong word. A line segment does not. HJ. So this would be segment HJ, and we would go HJ, and then the segment symbol is just a line symbol above it with no arrow. But unlike array, since a line segment has 2 endpoints, we can name it the other way. I could call this JH. It's the same thing. It's still talking about this right here. Okay. So up here, endpoint, again, it's a point at the end of a segment or array. It's just a separate kind of point. So again, it would just be a separate kind of point. We name it named just like a point. Named like a point, because it is a point. It's just a special point. It's a point that ends array or a line segment. Okay. Now into our task. So now here's some practice. So we want to draw a plane. Okay, so step 1, draw a plane. So I am going to go ahead, I'm going to grab my, and you can make this plane go any which way I want. I can also flip it over if I want to make it go that way. Okay, so it just depends on which way you want to make your plane go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw my plane. So there's my plane. So draw a plane and label 3 points in the plane. So I want to label 3 points in the plane. So 1, 2, 3. There's 3 points that are in the plane. We want to label them. I don't know. What do we want to make them? A, B, C, uppercase. Name the plane in 2 ways. So we could call this plane ABC. We could also call it plane CAB, plane cab. We could also call it plane BCA. Okay. A lot of different ways. I could ... There's more. I also could put an M up here in the corner with no, and I could call it plane M. That's not a point. That's just the name of the plane. How many points do you need to use to name a plane? You need 3. You need 3 points. Okay. And I will demonstrate in person why you need 3 points. 2 points won't cut it. You need 3. All right. B. Draw a ray with P as an endpoint. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's draw a ray. P has to be its endpoint, so we'll have it go this way. So here it'll be P. Draw a ray with P as an endpoint. Write a name for the ray. Well, I need 2 points. 2 points to name a ray. So I don't know. Let's put another point on it in Q. So we'll call it ray PQ. How many points do you need to name a ray? 2 points. The end point always has to be one of them. And then I need one other point. I could use any point on here. I put Q there. I could have used point M here. I could have used point W there. I could call it PM, PQ, PW. Each of them, basically the end point tells you where to start your ray. The other point tells you which direction to go. We're going this direction forever. So C, we want to draw a line segment and a ray that lie on the same line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to draw a line. There's a line. There's my line. I need a line segment. All right, so here's a line segment. Okay, let's keep reading. So they need to be on the same line and that share an endpoint. Well, if I turn this into segment AB, B is the endpoint of my segment. Can I have my ray go over here to C? So I have segment AB. That's just talking about that from there to there, A to B. And then we could say we have ray BC, which that's just talking about B going this way towards C. Both of these figures, this segment and this ray, are on this line. So they lie on the same line. They do. They share an endpoint. B is an endpoint for both of them. Explain how the rules for naming the 2 figures are different. Well, A, B could be in any order. This could also be BA. This one cannot. This one cannot be CB. Because if I had ray CB, that's starting here at C and going this way. So that would be this ray from here that way. Whereas we wanted it to be here that way. Because this ray and this line segment do not share an endpoint. The endpoint for this ray, CB, is C. C isn't an endpoint for that segment, so it wouldn't fit this rule. Okay.